The Savage Nation contains adult language, adult content, psychological nudity. Listener discretion is advised. And now, America's most exciting radio talk show, The Savage Nation, home of borders, language, culture. And here he is, Michael Savage.
So the anti-American communist slime, as exemplified by Joan Baez's song that you're listening to, an anti-war song of the 60s, have won. They brought it all down, girl. For 40 years, they've talked about bring it all down, man. And man, alive, the most unpopular president since George Washington, the most unpopular president since the Revolutionary War, has just about succeeded in destroying the United States of America. You know, there's a comedian who just went into rehab. They said he went into rehab to make sure that he doesn't slip. You know what that means? It means he slipped and had to go into rehab. It's nothing to celebrate, even though he's a psycho lib. He's a nice guy. I mean, whatever. I understand what it is to perform every day and feel you can't go on. But you don't know what it's like to not perform every day, but to talk truthfully every day and see all of your dreams going up in smoke because a anti-American revolutionary has performed a coup right in front of the eyes of the American people, and he got away with it. You could say all you want about Obama. You could say, oh, he's done this. He's the worst president in 70 years. It won't stop him. You don't understand how the communists work. You don't understand what's going on in front of your eyes. You don't see what he's doing. It's not enough to say he's the most unpopular president and go back to sleep or plan your vacation. So I couldn't go to rehab because I've never been in rehab, so I couldn't go back to rehab. I don't use drugs. So I went and I prayed today. I stood at the edge of a promontory on the edge of the bay of San Francisco Bay. And all I thought when I stopped my bicycle I said, I've got to pray to God. I want to see what God has to say to me. I haven't talked to him for a while. I didn't even know how to pray to him. I really didn't know how to pray to God. I forgot how to pray. I looked up and I said, what do you want me to do? What can I do for you other than to say, thank you for all you have given me. Thank you for all you've given my family. And then I heard a still small voice say, that's not good enough. So I had to bend my knee to God. And then when I bent my knee to God today, I said something in Hebrew that I remembered from the time I was a little boy. And the word sounded almost like Allah. And then I realized there is only one God. It's the God of the Jews, the God of Christians, and the God of Muslims. I remember that all of these religions worship the same God. And I thought that may have been God's message. I'm not so sure if it's the same message. I do know that this group ISIS in the Middle East is killing fellow Muslims by the hundreds, if not by the thousands. They're cutting off their heads. They're humiliating them, burning villages to the ground. Fellow Muslims are being killed by these psychopathic Islamo-Nazis. You have to ask yourself, why is Obama not unleashing drones on them? Why is he not firing Tomahawk missiles at them? They're running around with brand-new Toyota trucks. Captured American tanks and Humvees. Why is he not blowing them up? You don't understand what's going on here. These are the people that Obama wants to overthrow Assad with. They're McCain's army. You've heard of McHale's Navy, a popular TV show of many years ago. ISIS is McCain's army. They were given the weapons, and they're going to use the weapons to throw over Assad. Do you have any idea what's waiting for the world when Assad is gone and they take over his air force? Is there anyone listening to the show who understands what I'm saying to you, that this is all calculated from within? This is not happening by accident. We still have the most powerful military on earth, and we're not using it. Why not? We're not using it on the border to stop the immigrants coming in with epidemics, are we? We're not using the military to stop ISIS from using their powers of murder and fascism, are we? So, therefore, the government is enabling ISIS, if not outright behind ISIS. You have to ask yourself, wait a minute, what can I do about it? I don't know what you can do about it. All I can do is talk about it. And all I can do is ask myself, why has God forsaken America? So I flipped open the Bible. You can turn the show off now and go listen to one of the comedians who's doing a joint right now for his mocking show tonight. Maybe it's Bill Maher getting ready to mock the American flag and God. Gee, I don't want to be around him on his deathbed, I'll tell you. I really don't want to be around him on the deathbed when he screams out for mommy and there's no mommy. And he says, I can't scream out to God because I mocked him for the last 50 years or 60 years. Or the other comedians reading the scripts written for them by the government media complex. So I flipped open Deuteronomy. I flipped the book open, and a passage jumped out, and it said, but Jerusalem waxed fat and kicked out. You waxed fat, you grew thick, you became gross, and you forsook God who made him and condemned the rock of his salvation. Now, what does that mean? In Deuteronomy, it says that the reason Israel was overthrown in ancient days and taken into slavery by the Babylonians is because they turned on God. They grew fat, they grew thick, they became gross. It sounds like Harvey Weinstein. They they waxed fat, didst grow thick, they didst become gross. If I were to put a face on it, it would be Harvey Weinstein of Hollywood. And he forsook God who made him and condemned the rock of his salvation. So you don't believe in any of this. You believe it's all a joke. And yet the Bible tells us it's not a joke. It tells us that Jerusalem, which was once a great power, fell several times. It fell in Babylonian times. It fell in Roman times. Why? Because the people, once they became powerful and strong, became weak and fat, just like we are. That's why I did a poem the other day about old white men slinging bags of dog crap. I said that symbolizes America today. Old white men slinging bags of dog crap. That to me symbolizes the America that we're living in today. So, I picked up the phone. I felt refreshed from that prayer, by the way, at the edge of the water. I'll do the news if you want later, but I'm not ready for it. It's going to take me a long while to do the news. You can get it from one of the leg crossers on Murdoch's chorus line. Murdoch's chorus line is there with the lipstick sitting up like pointer dogs from the side. You got to hand it to Ailes. He does side shots, and he gives you softcore porn with Fox News, which I like. It's very interesting. But they do it fairly good. At least their politics are right. I don't mind that it's softcore porn, and the girls all look like pointers sitting up for Roger. At least their politics are correct. That's the good news. Softcore porn for conservatives, I guess you can call Fox News. So if you want the news, you can go to the girls doing the softcore porn right now, but I'm not going to do the news on the Savage Nation. I'm going to do my views of the world. It's a one-man radio show for the last 20 years. I don't intend to change it for the next 20 days. So as I said to you, I'm just bewildered by how he gets away with it, Obama. I'm bewildered by how the military stands down while the world is burning. I'm bewildered by how the media has disappeared in your lifetime. I'm bewildered by the influx of diseased immigrants on purpose by Holder, by Obama, by Valerie Jarrett, by the invisible hands behind Obama like La Raza. I'm bewildered by it all. I'm bewildered by what's going on in front of my eyes, how the communist revolution that I was warned about has actually taken place right in front of my eyes, and there's been no opposition except on a few radio shows, a few blogs who see it. The intelligentsia who study these things see what's going on. And I'm using a loaded word again, the word intelligentsia, because I told you it was used specifically, well, not invented there, it was used specifically during the Russian period, the early Russian period, revolutionary times, but it applies in America today. I made a call after coming back from the bike ride to an old friend who's in the media. Let's just say he's an extremely prominent conservative. Let's leave it at that. And we were talking about publishing my journals and various unpublished works that I have. And after about 30 minutes, it came back to us and where we've been in our life's work. And I was trying to tell him how hard it is to look at my work from 1963 onward. And I jokingly said, I haven't yet turned to salt. Don't look back, you'll turn to a pillar of salt. I said, I haven't yet turned to salt, but I'm real close. I need some pepper. I surely need some pepper right now to prevent becoming salt, because looking back while you're living on your early self with pictures of yourself and your writings is frightening. I don't know if I'm going to continue to do this. So he talked to me about who he was in the 60s. And he told me that he was a radical leftist in the 60s. He told me that he was deeply enmeshed in the entire counterculture movement. I had no idea that that's what he was. And I said, wait a minute. Don't you realize, I said to Comrade X, this dire conservative today who fights the communists every day, I said, don't you realize that our politics have not really changed? I said, don't you realize that we still are idealistic liberals? And he laughed. I said, my politics haven't changed. I was always against authoritarianism. I haven't changed my politics in 50 years. I oppose authoritarianism. And that's what I'm fighting today. It's the same as the 60s. People say, how did you go from being a liberal to a conservative? The answer is, I didn't change at all. You did. I said to him, don't you understand what happened here? I said, we're still fighting this authoritarianism that we fought in the 1960s. So then it was LBJ and the war. Now it's Obama and the war. But it's worse than LBJ and the war. It's Obama and the Nazi spying, number one. It's Obama and his Nazi regime, decimating his enemies with tactics not used since Joseph Stalin and getting away with it for a number of reasons. And so I said, that's why we resist him. We resist him and we oppose him for those reasons. I said, our politics haven't changed. I said, the definition of our politics has been changed for us. The communists are so clever that they've changed the definition of what a liberal is. By definition, I'm a classical liberal, and I'm proud of it. Now, you can jump all over that and say, oh, Savage admitted he's a liberal. What does that actually mean? What it means is I'm the liberal that liberals pretend to be and aren't. You're telling them that Bill Maher and those frauds on television are liberals? They're Nazi, they're fascist spokesmen supporting a fascist regime. How else would you define someone who makes a joke about spying on the average American? That's a liberal for you. You see, this explains why many liberals love my show. They don't quite understand how they can love me, even though I'm defined as a conservative. But I'm not really a right-winger. No. I'm not a left-winger. I'm not a right-winger. I'm an anti-authoritarian. I'm an anti-authoritarian. I despise people controlling me. I don't like a government controlling me. Do you understand that? Now you have the most controlling government in American history. Not since King George have Americans been as decimated by centralized authority as we are under this fraudster, trickster, KGB frontman, Barack Hussein Obama. Which brings us to the next point. Back when I was doing this show in the 1990s, there would be a caller who would say, Michael, I spoke to an ex-KGB agent who said that the Soviets never lost the Cold War. They actually won it. They just went underground. And they're going to wind up putting a person in office in America after taking over all the cultural apparatus, and they're going to win at the end. I said, don't be crazy. I said, wait a minute. Hold it. Stop for a minute. Whoa. Is that what happened here? Are you telling me there's been a worldwide communist victory and I don't know it? I'm the odd man out? Anyway, these are some of the thoughts that I'm having, and that's why I'm playing In the Wind, Blowing in the Wind by Joan Baez. If only she had stuck to the wind, we would have been a healthier nation. The phone number is 855-400-7282. I don't know what to ask you. I suppose I should ask a question now. I have no questions to ask. I have no questions. I have only answers, and I'll be right back on the Savage Nation.
Join the Savage Nation. Call now, 855-400-SAVAGE, 855-400-7282. Savage.
The Savage Nation is sponsored by SwissAmerica.com, the only company I, Michael Savage, trust to buy my gold and silver from. SwissAmerica.com. So, it's one of those personal days on the Savage Nation, but instead of taking a day off, I'm taking the personal day on the air. Welcome back to the program. I'm just sharing with you my views of America, myself, where I'm at, where the country's at, and how he gets away with it. Here's a news story that relates to what I'm talking about. Colorado's DMV website overwhelmed by illegal alien license requests. Did you hear what I just said? Because the liberal psychos in Colorado have opened up their DMV to non-citizens. The website was shut down on the same day that illegal aliens were allowed to begin making appointments to obtain driver's licenses. Now, you know, the driver's license will let them vote. You understand that? That's what it's all about. I called the DMV in the state of California the Department of Mexican Voting 10 years ago, which is what it is. But if you read the story, you come to this line and your jaw drops. Gabriela Flora, a regional organizer for the American Friends Service Committee, called on the state to provide more locations where the illegal alien licenses can be acquired. She says, having a system where people have to wait months or years to get a license doesn't stand up to what the law is meant to do, said Flora. Now, the American Friends Service Committee is a Quaker organization. The Baptists are providing the brown shirts down in Southern California, where the illegal aliens are being brought in by Obama. You don't see the connection between the dollars being given to these church groups and their activities against America, do you? You don't see the fact that the separation of church and state should apply to the Baptists, it should apply to the Friends Service Committee, it should apply to the Presbyterian Church, it should apply to the liberal Jewish organizations, but it doesn't, and it should. And they should lose their tax-free status. And man, if I had the power, I'd rip their tax-free status and I'd throw it in the Rio Grande, because they're nothing but political organizations. They're using God as a weapon against America. Who do they think they are? Do you think they're fooling everybody? You know how many millions of dollars are being made on this illegal alien game? You think it's being done out of humanitarian reasons? Billions of dollars, trillions of dollars will be made before this is over. And the churches are a big part of it. They've never had it so good. They've never had it so good. First of all, you stopped going to the church, so they needed new victims. And so, therefore, they have to bring them in from the countries where they still believe in that stuff. I mean, where do you go for your audience? You go where they believe in you. The people stop. You have all these expensive infrastructure, bricks and mortars, and no one goes there anymore. So the church fathers say, this is bad. We got to get them in on the... How we get them back in the pews? You'll never get them in. They're only interested in Twitter and porno and whatever. Well, why don't we bring them in? They still believe in this stuff down there in Guatemala. All right, let's bring them in. So they work out a deal with the government. That's my opinion. I have a very cynical view of the world. You'll have to excuse me. You'll have to excuse me. I grew up in a cynical age.
Join the Savage Nation. Call now, 855-400-SAVAGE, 855-400-7282. Savage.
It's the Savage Nation. I mean, tomorrow is the beginning of the July 4th holiday, and I'm supposed to be on a vacation holiday mentality, and I slipped into something else entirely because I see before my eyes the death of a nation. I see the most evil government in history destroying the country in every way it can as fast as it can. Now, either I've gone crazy or I see things exactly as they are. I can't be alone, though, because even the average dummy now says he's the most unpopular president since World War II. Even the dumbest idiot out there understands how incompetent he is and how he can't manage anything. And they start to hear him whining like a teenager who got caught smoking pot in the back room, starting to sound more and more like an enraged teenager. He's a very dangerous president, because one thing about people who are caught, they get very, very dangerous. They don't always change. And I'm trying to remind you that this has happened historically before, but it was during the era of Chamberlain, Neville Chamberlain. I tried to touch on that the other day. And Chamberlain was the Prime Minister of England around the time of Hitler. And he thought that he could appease Hitler. So he struck a deal with Hitler. And he came back. Chamberlain was a member of the left-wing Labour Party. And he waved a piece of paper and he said, I have just signed an agreement, the Anglo-German agreement with Herr Hitler, and pieces at hand, and everyone cheered. Well, the next day Hitler invaded another country. Shortly thereafter, the Labour Party itself got together and threw him out. They threw Chamberlain out. It was his own party who did it. They realized he was not only destroying England, but he was going to destroy his own party, and of course, that's what they cared about. And it was Chamberlain's appeasement policy that made Hitler even more bold. Britain declared war against Germany after invaded Poland. And it was months later that Chamberlain resigned when Labour and the Liberals refused to enter into a wartime coalition with him. He was succeeded by the conservative Winston Churchill, who had opposed appeasement from the beginning. He saved England. What's going on here is Obama is, in one way, like Chamberlain, and the only people who can save us are the Democrats themselves. I said that now for weeks now. I was pleased to see that a columnist in the New York Post caught on and said the same thing. I like his writing. I won't mention it. And he wrote in his long article, Obama is paying the price for insisting he's right, which is good. He's a great writer. And then he said that, I got to read exactly what he said. I can't find it. I can't really put my hand on it, which is that only his own party can basically save the country. Only the Democrats, the wiser elders of the Democrat Party, were my words, have to come in and stop him, take his hands off the helm. Because he's not only crashing America, which they don't care about, but he's crashing the Democrat Party for the next 50 years. That's what's going on right now. And here it is. It says, while it's clear Obama will not listen to the public, there is still an outside chance that senior members of his party can persuade him to change course. Their argument would be a simple one, he wrote. This isn't working, and if you continue, Republicans will take the Senate and might well impeach you. That's sort of what I was saying for a few weeks now, which is that only the Democrats can save this country by recognizing that if they don't save their party by reining him in, all is lost. So that's one thing, and it's not directly related to what I'm going to read you now. I told you I'm in a spiritual mood today for reasons I can't describe because I don't know how I get in these moods. Months go by when I don't even think about God. I don't think about spirit. It's like I think about God and I think about living and dying. I don't think really about praying at all. Never. I don't really do it. I don't go to a house of worship for a number of reasons. I've never been comfortable in a house of worship. I just don't. I don't feel good in those places. It's too regimented. I don't like authorities. I don't like hierarchies. I don't like hearing about structures within the church where one is better than the other based upon birthright. I can't stand any of that, so I avoid it. I've always been a spiritual person. I never met my grandfather. He died before I was born, but it came down to me that he said, I asked this, but my grandfather was religious, and they said, no, he believed that you could pray to God wherever you were, even if you found a tree, put your back to a tree and pray to God. So I took that as a message that we were a spiritual family, but not a religious one. That's how I was raised. My father was a diehard atheist and didn't believe in anything. I mean, he was so cynical, it was frightening. You talk about Russian realism. I don't even want to tell you what he said to me when I was young. You talk about why I'm a cynic. I don't want to expose it again. I think I did it once. It wouldn't be fair to him. But he died the way he lived. He wasn't afraid at the end. He just did it. He didn't cry out to anyone. He just crawled in the back of his store and died. He could have been saved. It was the second heart attack. He just crawled in the back and died. It's not that he was ready to die. He didn't want to scream out and he didn't want to be stuck with pipes in him and medication and wheelchairs. He just didn't want to live that way. So he died young, that's all. That was the way he was. There's a nobility in that. I mean, when you think about it, you feel it coming on, you crawl in the back of your store and you die and get it over with. And, let's move on already. So I was not raised in a religious world, but there was a period in my life where I became super religious. When I hit a stone wall and couldn't go further in my life in my 30s, I thought I would go insane. It was because I had worked so hard to achieve what I wanted, and then the liberals changed the rules on me. They said white men need not apply. Now, I had young children and I had large debt. I put in many years to get that degree, and they said, no, that's not the union card anymore. You may have a great PhD from a great university, but we're not hiring white men anymore. Drop dead. And the ACLU published a little article saying some people will have to put their futures on hold. And I was one of those people. Well, it's okay to say now I look back and everything worked out, but it didn't look like it would work out then. And I didn't know what to do. I was at my wit's end. I didn't know what to do. And I swear to God, as I stand before you, I thank God I had children, because I had not had children, I probably not would have continued with my life. I'll tell you right now. I told you that. I stayed in my life because of my children. It wasn't for them, there'd be no reason to live. And that's something I'm trying to tell you. Children are the most life-affirming thing you can do with your life. But that means raising them, not just having them like a dog. There used to be a poet in North Beach who would boast, I have a child too. He was a dog, a filthy dog. He didn't live with the woman he impregnated. All he did was use drugs, shoot up heroin, get drunk, and write garbage poetry that nobody remembers. I said, you're not a man, you're a dog. Well, we got into a bad fist fight in Specs Bar. It wasn't fun. And I'm not a ruffian. I couldn't take it anymore. He was a mean drunk. He was much better when he was on heroin. When he was on heroin, he was a little milder. When he was drunk, he was a raging animal. Anyway, glasses went flying. I said, you're not a man. You didn't have a child. I said, you had a child like a dog has a child. You didn't stay home and raise it. Unfortunately, I was raised to speak that way, a little bluntly. People don't like it. They don't like it. I don't have many friends. They don't like my bluntness. So, but the fact is, because of my children and my commitment to them, I had to fight. I had to stay here. And a strange thing happened. I became somewhat religious, and I went out one day on my little deck in the back of a mountain, the dark mountain, and I started to pray. I prayed to God, and all I said was, God, I'm not asking for a fortune. I don't want a fortune. I'm not asking you to give me win the lottery. I said, just please help me make a living. That's all I said. And as God is my witness, the Red Sea parted. I don't mean the next second. I don't mean a pot of gold fell into my lap. But the way opened up for me. The way opened up for me because I asked God for his help. And the rest is where I am today. Things happened slowly. But I had to work for what I have. Don't think it was given to me. And there were impediments put in the way every day of my life. People tried to destroy me on a local station. They still do. The liberals are very, very devious. They try to destroy the show every way they could. But it didn't work because I had a mission. So now here I am. I'm almost at another point of no return in my life, which is, where do I go from here, where 20 years of my political life has gone up in smoke under this communist regime that we're living under? And what bothers me about it is that very few people understand there's been a coup in the United States of America. That the rogue president has performed a brilliant coup, almost like Merlin the magician. He's gotten away with it because the people don't even know what he's done. They may say his Obamacare is not good, or he's not handling foreign policy well, or this, or the IRS scandal. They don't get it. They don't see the pattern. They see the individual pieces. They don't see the whole. I've been blessed with the ability to see the whole. And I see the coup for what it is. It's not by accident, and he's not incompetent, and he's not doing these things by chance, and he's not doing these things because he's incompetent. It's all part of the puzzle, which brings us back for a minute to the Middle East, because the world's going to live and die as to what happens in Israel. As sure as I'm sitting here, just as Jerusalem was the beginning of Western civilization, Jerusalem will be the determinant of whether Western civilization goes forward. And we have the most anti-Jewish, anti-Israel president in American history. And yet, if you ask 90% of the Jews in America, they would vote for Obama again. Why? Well, all you got to do is look back to the 1930s and you'll see why. You'll get the same answer. Nobody's changed. Nobody's changed. As brilliant as people might be, art, science, poetry, law, medicine, you name it. When it comes to survival, brain dead. Brain dead. They can't see beyond their own fears. So don't include me in that pack. And so I say the Middle East will be the determinant as to whether Western civilization survives or not. Now, you know this president hates Western civilization. You know he was steeped in anti-Western civilization. You know he grew up in Wright's church, where he said, God damn America, not God bless America. And he put a little pin on his suit, and he goes to cemeteries and puts on the act. He hates America. You say, how do you know that? Well, just look at what he does. He's decimated the military, and on and on. I mean, I don't want to read you a whole book here on the air to prove my point. In my opinion, he hates America. He always has. And he continues to hate America, and he continues to eviscerate it. So as I say to you, all will depend upon whether or not Israel can defeat this new dark force of fascism that's emerged in the Middle East called ISIS, because it's not really new. Say, well, where'd they come from? How did they gain so much territory? We learned this morning they took over western Syria and the largest oil field in Syria. How'd that happen? Gee, wow. They were really good. And the opposition didn't even fight them. They threw down their weapons or they joined them. Wow. Who is ISIS? They weren't invented yesterday. How'd they wind up with all of American weapons and tanks and Humvees and enough weapons for 200,000 men? Isn't this what McCain wanted? Didn't McCain scream for years to give weapons to the rebels in Syria? Sure he did. Well, now they have them. We didn't even have to send them over by ship. We just set the stage for them to come in and take them. So after Obama created the vacuum by leaving Iraq with no rear guard to defend Iraq, into the void, into the vacuum moves the Islamofascists, who are so vicious they're killing other Muslims by the thousands. And they've taken over a good swath of the whole area. And now it's on to Jerusalem, isn't it? It's on to Jerusalem. Isn't their ultimate goal to kill the Jews and push them into the sea? It's not just to kill fellow Muslims. And if you see what they're doing to fellow Muslims, it gives you some idea of what they do to Jewish children. So let me look to a crystal ball to see what's going to happen. Are you ready for it? I'll look in the crystal ball with you. I will read to you from Jeremiah, and I'll see what you think about it. And it says, "For I will bring evil from the north." I almost fell down when I found that this morning. I will bring evil from the north. Didn't we hear that this ISIS army came from the north? I will bring evil from the north and a great destruction. A lion is gone up from his thicket, and a destroyer of nations is set out, gone forth from his place, to make thy land desolate, that thy cities be laid waste, without inhabitant. For this gird you with sackcloth, lament, and wail, for the fierce anger of the Lord is not turned back from us. And it shall come to pass at that day, said the Lord, that the heart of the king shall fail, and the heart of the princes, and the priest shall be astonished, and the prophet shall wonder. What is Jeremiah prophesizing here? Oh, it's pretty bad. It's pretty bad. You don't think it could happen, right? You say it can't happen, not in our lifetime. Oh, it certainly can happen. You say, what, Netanyahu's heart can't fail him? That instead of using his army, he loses his guts to defend his own people and they're swept into the sea? It could happen. You say, oh, come on, that's nonsense. I'm not so sure it's nonsense. Obama's told Netanyahu not to make things worse. They found the 3 butchered boys under the rocks, and Netanyahu blew up some empty buildings over in Gaza. Again, the empty buildings like Bill Clinton's empty pharmaceutical factory in Libya, another token little use of the Air Force. And you wonder, well, how are they ever going to survive if they're not willing to fight back right now while they have the power? And the answer is they may not. You say, well, who cares what happens to a bunch of Jews in Israel? They don't like it, they'll let them move to L.A. Let them go to Mexico and come in over the border. They could become refugees with the rest of them from El Salvador. I'm sure they'll be treated better than the American veterans. Anyway, these are just some musings of mine today. And I guess the word amusement and musings are related, so I do hope I'm amusing you. I'll be right back.
Join the Savage Nation. Call now, 855-400-SAVAGE, 855-400-7282. Savage.
So I've given you one from the heart just now on the Savage Nation, and there's no way to repeat what I've just done because I can't repeat what I've just done. There's a guy in the media who I like who says, oh, come on, Mike, give a meatball recipe and talk about Chinese food. Please, that cracks me up. Listeners will love it. So I said, hey, grow a set of ears if that's what you think I'm all about. I sent him an email. So he says, Mike, no, you know that I like your template. It's the holiday, meatballs and Chinese food. Come on, Michael, it moves the needle. You're intelligent. So during the break, I said, the truth moves the needle faster than anything else. It's so rare in the media. Misty on KSFO, you're on the Savage Nation. Fire away.
Hey, Michael. First, I want to say bless you. And I have to tell you, I have lived a very similar life that I am a truth sayer, and I'm kind of on the hot issues and the front lines of different things, and people do not want to hear the truth. And that's just the way the society is. I agree with what you're saying about everything that's going on in the politics and in the world, and that we're living in a spiritual battle. And people, even though you think you have said that a lot of them see it, I walk around and test the spirits, and people are so oblivious.
It's the drugs. It's the drugs. It's the drugs, the sports, and the rap music. It's all part and parcel of the hypnosis of our time. Drugs, sports, and rap music. Drugs, sports, and rap music.
Join the Savage Nation. Call now, 855-400-SAVAGE, 855-400-7282. Warning, the Savage Nation contains adult language, adult content, psychological nudity. Listener discretion is advised. And now, America's most exciting radio talk show, The Savage Nation, home of borders, language, culture. And here he is, Michael Savage.
Welcome back. This is hour number 2 of the Savage Nation. If you just tuned in, well, in the first hour I was, let us say, waxing spiritual. I was in a sort of another place, another state of mind, another dimension, a place that I've gone to from time to time on the Savage Nation, where my regular listeners can follow me. I think the average listener probably can't and doesn't want to. But the fact is that the core of the man you're listening to is important for you to know. This is a very long relationship. Talk radio is not like any other medium that you're used to. It's a daily, 3-hour, 5-day-a-week, many-year operation. And in that sense, we become a part of your life. And if we're a part of your life, then you have to know more about who we are. And that means the ups and the downs, the mood swings, the sillinesses, the laughter, the brilliance, the stupidity, from Frankenstein to Einstein. And so, therefore, in the last hour, the divinity that's within me was shown. Well, let's say my attachment to the divinity that's within all of us, the universal attachment to divinity, was exposed, and where it comes from, which is about religion and God. And what's interesting is a new study came out today, which I just saw, after telling you all of that, after, let's say, bearing my soul on the air. 72% of conservatives say religion answers all or most of today's problems. That's pretty amazing. New Gallup poll, the same one that said that Obama's the worst president since Jesus, I'm joking, since World War II. 3/4 of conservatives say faith is a key problem solver, compared to 36% of libs and 58% of mods. I won't go into all the details, right? So it's still strong in America. Religion is still very powerful in this country, and maybe even more so now that we have such an atheistic regime running the country. So I turned to the Bible for some of the answers of what's going to happen in the Middle East, and I'm frightened. I then looked up Syria in the Bible, and I found 4 or 5 places. Isaiah 17, Jeremiah 49. And you have to understand that the Bible may be predictive. The burden of Damascus. Damascus is taken away from being a city, and it shall be a ruinous heap. The cities of Aroer are forsaken. They shall be for flocks, which shall lie down, and none shall make them afraid. And they talk about the destruction of Damascus. But I have to ask you, what follows the destruction of Damascus? It will be worse than what we have under Assad. Is there not a sane person in the Department of Defense? Is there not a sane man or woman left in the CIA? Is there not a sane individual left in the State Department who will understand that the past is predictive of what will happen now? Look at what you did in Libya. You overthrew Gaddafi, a bad man, an evil man, but he was able to hold the warring tribes together through brute force. And he warned you. He said, don't kill me, he said, because if you do, Libya will descend into a series of tribes, as you see in Somalia. That's exactly what happened. Of course, after they caught Gaddafi, they didn't try him, did they? Hillary said, we came, we saw he died, and she cackled with her 4 horsewomen of the apocalypse. We came, we saw he died. No trial. No trial. They killed him. Did they think about what would follow in Libya? No. Did they think about what would follow after they killed Saddam? No. Are they thinking about what will follow after they kill Assad? No. So who's running things? Who is running? I feel, there was a William Burroughs story. Those of you who go back to the hippie age, who were fans of William Burroughs as I was, he wrote a great story called The Ticket That Exploded. I feel that this government's run like the ticket that exploded. There's no center to it. There's no brains. I'm going through my old writings going back to 63. I told you that I'm having them transcribed, and I found the museum, a library that wants them. Berkeley can take, they can do. Let me just stop right there. They were offered to Berkeley, my alma mater, and they wouldn't answer my lawyer, so I went and found another university, a greater one, that deserves my great archives. All my recordings going back to 94, all my writings, some unpublished stories, all unpublished journals. I'm looking back, and it's a little difficult to look back for when you were a younger guy and try to live in this life. It's pretty dizzying. And I found an article I wrote for a magazine on the Lower East Side of New York. It was a literary called, a little magazine called Exit Magazine. It lasted 4 editions. I was the associate editor. And I thought I was a brilliant intellectual at the time. And I wrote an article entitled, Who is at the Helm? I was into marine biology at the time, and I was trying to compare society to a sea creature called a hydra. But I said even a hydra has thinking cells, and then they have cells within the hydra organism that do the fighting. They have cells that do the digesting. And I said, who is at the helm? Who are our thinking cells? Because even then I felt that we had no thinking cells. It seemed that nobody was in charge. There was no one running this country. There were no brains involved. Nothing's really changed in that regard. Nothing's really changed. Who is at the helm? Who is thinking these things through? Could it be that I'm smarter than they are? Could it be that I know more than they do? Could it be that they should actually listen to somebody who may see things more clearly than they do? Could it be that they could put aside for 1 minute their left-wing ideology and say, wait a minute, maybe this guy is right, maybe we should pause. Why are we backing ISIS? Why are we letting them make these gains? What are we going to have happen if Assad is overthrown? Or do they listen to that dunderhead, McCain, that lunatic? This is McCain's army. ISIS is McCain's army. McCain's boys. Remember McHale's Navy? This is McCain's army. He wanted them to have weapons, didn't he? Oh, no, he wanted the good rebels to have the weapons. Well, there are no good rebels because ISIS is wiping them out one after the other. The only rebels are ISIS now. And so these are McCain's boys. I see what's going on. They should invite me into the White House and say, look, let's put aside this enmity that we have. Why don't you tell us what you see and why you see it? Lay it out for us logically. That's what would happen in a sane country. But no, it goes back to I've seen the best minds of my generation howling in madhouses. The best minds of my generation howling in madhouses. And the worst of every type rises to the top. The worst of every type rises to the top. And that's why the madhouses are filled with people who are, in some cases, very, very insightful. They're not all crazy. They're not all lost. They're not all lunatics. Some of them see exactly what's going on. If not politically, then let us say in their own life. They knew what was going on. They saw what was happening in their own life, and people called them crazy. So let's go to the callers. Where's the lady I wanted to talk to? Who was the best one from KSFO? Line 2? No, that's Torsha on BAP. Let's start on KSFO. There was a woman who said something that I saw. I can't even see the screen right now. Okay, Torsha on line 2, WBAP in Dallas, where my show is attracting a very large audience. Dallas, God bless you. Torsha, welcome to the program. What's on your mind?
Michael Savage, I love you, but I want you to stop saying that if you look back, you're going to turn into a pillar of salt. That does not apply to you. That applied to Lot and his family when the angels came down to Sodom and Gomorrah and warned them to leave. And unfortunately, Lot's wife turned around and God told her not to do it, and so she did, unfortunately, and she died. So
what is the meaning? What is the meaning, the metaphor, don't look back? What does it mean in our daily lives? Let's put aside the actual literal biblical meaning of Lot's wife. What does don't look back mean?
I can't answer that question. That would have to pertain, I guess, to the individual.
Okay, so in a way, I'm not joking when I'm saying don't look back. Remember the great Bob Dylan song, "Don't Look Back." There's a movie, "Don't Look Back," I think. And all poets have known if you look back too long on your own life, you can turn to a pillar of salt. You can get frozen in your tracks. That's what I'm saying.
Okay, well, I can...
You see what I mean, Torsha? I don't mean it literally when I say I might turn to a pillar of salt. I mean by looking at my writings from when I was 22 years old, 23 years old, and struggling to metamorphose, to emerge, to become a butterfly, to go from being a caterpillar human to a butterfly. You can become a caterpillar again. In a way, thanks very much for listening to me so carefully. I guess I defined it in my own way. I was just a caterpillar at that. All of my early writings are about me trying to become a butterfly. But I was stuck. I didn't know how to become a butterfly. I didn't know what to do. And then I move on, my 63, 64, 65, and I'm hitting like 66 now. I see slight changes, still a school teacher, still struggling. How do I get ahead in life? What do I do? How do I improve my station in life? Where do I go? Blah, blah, blah. And things are happening. The next thing I know, in one journal, in 1 year, My father dies, my brother dies, my son is born, and I make my first deep trip into the South Pacific to collect plants, and I'm living in a village with black people collecting plants and listening to folk stories and living with the women healers, and it's unbelievable. All within a short period of time, this all happened, within a very short span of time. It was as though in one little sequence, in one journal, it all occurs. Father dies, brother dies, son is born, first plant collecting. I couldn't believe it. It was all in that one journal. So you say, wow, that was quite a turning point. Can there ever be another turning point like that in my life, I wonder? I ask myself, what's the next incarnation of my life? I'm sorry to bore you with this, navel gazing, but I'd rather talk about this mixed in with world politics than anything else on earth right now. I'd rather do this. What am I supposed to do? Sit here and repeat what everyone else said all day long? I did this show yesterday on immigrants and epidemics. I've been talking about it since 1982. A lot of good it's done me. And I guess that's why I'm kind of depressed. It's as though my life work has gone up in smoke. Everything I have seen to be true has been destroyed by this juggernaut of... Let me give an example. Governor Jerry Brown in 1975 says, don't dump Vietnamese refugees on California. During his first stint as governor of California, he said, don't dump Vietnamese on California. Newsweek reported at the time, he said, we can't be looking 5,000 miles away and at the same time neglecting people who live here. And they quoted Jerry Brown at the time. It says, the new governor of California, Jerry Brown, was very concerned about refugees settling in his state. He even attempted to prevent planes carrying refugees from landing at Travis Air Force Base near Sacramento. The Secretary of Health and Welfare, Mario Oblido, felt that this addition of a large minority group would be unwelcome in California. And he said that they already had a large population of Hispanics, Filipinos, blacks, and other minorities. So they didn't want the Vietnamese here. Now, let's move forward. The same, quote, liberal governor approves a measure allowing non-citizens to get driver's licenses. Now, move the needle forward. The same Jerry Brown says that illegal aliens can get a law license and practice law in the state. Now, let's move the needle forward. And Jerry Brown boasts and says, while Washington waffles on immigration, California's forging ahead. I'm not waiting. My God, how things have changed. So the diseases that were feared amongst the Vietnamese were real, while the real diseases of the Central Americans are not real. No, it's all about power, nothing else. That's not leadership. That's demagoguery. There's a difference between leadership, winning elections, and leadership that saves a state or saves a nation. You get the difference? We don't have either. What we have is pure demagoguery from the top to the bottom, wherever you turn. So that's why it's very hard for me to do politics, because I'm not going to look to them for answers. I'm going to look to them for answers. They're not interested in anything that's true. And I'm interested in the truth, so I turn to the Bible. You say, now you're off the track. How could you, with a PhD as brilliant as you are, how could you believe in that garbage written by a bunch of ancient olive growers? What did they know? Bunch of old Jews growing olives. What did they know? I don't know. An awful lot of people, an awful lot of religions base itself on the Old Testament. First the Jews, then the Christians, then the Muslims. It's all built upon the same visions. The same visions started 3 of the world's principal religions. So you can't tell me that of the 5 or some billion people on the earth, the 3 billion monotheists are all stupid, can you? I'll be right back.
Join the Savage Nation. Call now, 855-400-SAVAGE, 855-400-7282. Savage.
The Savage Nation is sponsored by SwissAmerica.com, the only company I, Michael Savage, trust to buy my gold and silver from. SwissAmerica.com. I have breaking news that hasn't hit any website yet. It came to my producer from the Israel Defense Forces a minute ago. A Twitter feed from the IDF a minute ago, warning possible nuclear leak in the region after 2 rockets hit the Mona nuclear facility. It's on. I knew there was something going on in my soul. I just knew it. I knew something was going to happen. I felt it in my blood. And it's happened. This is a news story. It's not on Drudge. It's nowhere. It's a news feed directly to my producer, Neil, from the IDF, warning possible nuclear leak in the region after 2 rockets hit the Mona nuclear facility. It's on. It's on. It's that simple. You know what this means, don't you? You have any idea what this means? Forget me and my musings and my religious feelings and my going back to Isaiah as to what will occur in the Middle East in the last hour and a half. I was wondering why I was in this mood. I don't know what brings me to these places. But in many ways, I'm like a tuning fork of the world. And what this means politically, you can pretty much figure out. The Palestinians kidnap 3 Jewish boys, 15, 16 years old, torture them, mutilate them, kill them, and throw them under rocks. The Israelis spend 2 weeks or so looking for them. They find the subhumans who did this. Then one of the settlers goes insane and does the same thing to a Palestinian. Now the rockets start flying. What's next? Tell me what happens next. I just gave you some news. It's not on your websites. You can't find it anywhere. IDF just came into my studio to Neil, warning possible nuclear leak in the region after 2 rockets hit Dimona nuclear facility. Dimona is where the Israelis have their nuclear weapons, allegedly. The alleged nuclear weapons are allegedly in Dimona. I know they have a nuclear reactor in Dimona. That I know for sure. That's well known, rather. And if you want to muse on what that means, go ahead. Be my guest. Make my day. It's going to come up on the news sites any minute now. You'll see it any minute, but you heard it first on the Savage Nation. I don't need a ratings boost from it. I'm just telling you what's going on in the world. And it's strange it came up while I was going through this whole religious deal. It seems the whole world is falling apart because of Obama's plans, not incompetence. Yeah, nature abhors a vacuum, huh?
Join the Savage Nation. Call now, 855-400-SAVAGE, 855-400-7282. Savage.
I'm reporting a breaking news story that we can't actually confirm 100%, but it came to my producer during the last 10 minutes, from the Israel Defense Forces directly on a Twitter feed, warning possible nuclear leak in the region after 2 rockets hit Dimona nuclear facility. And as you well know, the Middle East is a cauldron. It always has been. Where this goes is anyone's guess, but we can pretty much know that the Israelis have to launch the airplanes. It's that simple. It's long overdue. They're going to be overrun otherwise. It's as simple as that. They can't sit on their behinds anymore and wait for Obama to tell them what to do. Finally made it up to the top of Drudge. Possible nuclear leak in Israel after 2 rockets hit Dimona nuclear facility. Good. I'm glad someone's listening to the show. And I'm glad they heard Immigrants and Epidemics yesterday. Good. I'm glad everyone listens to everyone and everyone pays attention to everyone. We have a very small group of people doing anything at all. So we don't know. We'll keep watching the news as it breaks. And I'll take your calls in the interim. Who shall I take right now? ABC, Lou. Thanks for holding, Lou. Welcome. What's on your mind from New York City?
Very good talking to you again. And, of course, that this attack is disturbing, but I have no doubt that the IDF probably has taken a lot of precaution in defending their facilities, so it probably didn't create a lot of damage. But what I wanted to say is that we've...
Wait. Before I say yes, I'm sure you're right. It just said the possible nuclear leak. So, what does that mean? Right. It says possible nuclear leak. I mean, that means possible nuclear leak. It doesn't mean that it wasn't hit.
Right. And we'll see what happens with that. But I wanted to give you what I thought was some good news. I think that this declaration by this Abu al-Baghdadi of not only establishing a caliphate and making himself the Khalifa of all of Sunni Islam is going to backfire against them. I think it's the greatest news for 4th of July we could have, because I guarantee you Iran, Syria, Russia, Saudi Arabia, and Turkey will probably have a difference of opinion concerning this guy being the leader of... No,
I understand. Finally, there's a landmass and a leader and an army that they can attack. I get it. It's no longer a shadowy group that can't be hit. I get it. That's what you're saying. Right. You're saying they made themselves a target is what you're saying.
Oh, yes.
Yeah, but listen, here's the thing that disturbs me the most. If you look at the history of Muslim conquests, it was done by small armies that were completely ruthless, killing everyone in their path. And that's exactly the model that ISIS has been following. Razing villages to the ground, burning churches, killing men, women, and children, killing the enemies, cutting their heads off. Absolutely the same model. What's to stop them from raging on to Jerusalem?
Because they did that in the Middle Ages, and the West is far, far, far more powerful than they are.
Okay, hold it. That's true. But if you have a disproportionate balance between the most powerful militaries on earth and the weakest leaders ever seen, and a rather weak military with the most powerful leader, tell me how that works out.
I agree with you.
We have the weakest military leaders in American history, with still the most powerful military the world has ever seen. And then you have an opposition, for example, in ISIS, with really not a big deal military, but still enough to cover to supply enough weapons for 200,000 men, and a ruthless leader willing to kill anyone. Men, women, and children. Doesn't care about Geneva, doesn't care about UN, doesn't care about eagles, doesn't care about the water, doesn't care about the sand, doesn't care about the air. They're willing to do anything to get their way. Tell me how that might work out.
All right, here's another scenario, too. Not only the outside forces, but let's remember that the Baathists and these guys have different motivations, and that's what caused the destruction of Al-Qaeda in the last round. And also now they've got the Kurds to fight.
Oh, who, Al-Qaeda does?
No, ISIS.
Yeah, so you're agreeing with me.
Well, I'm saying what's going to happen is they have created so many enemies, and with a force that's less than a division, that can easily be cut off by many, many ways, especially if we...
Well, they could have been cut off by now if Obama launched one drone at them. He could have stopped them. How come he hasn't blown up one of their trucks? See, this is what's puzzling. Why has Obama not blown up one of ISIS trucks so far? Tell me.
Well, we both agree on that. We have a very weak leader in the White House.
Well, they are McCain's army, though, aren't they? Aren't these the guys that McCain wanted to arm?
Yes, they are.
They are. So, therefore, it could be that McCain has been whispering in Obama's ear that this is a good thing, that if only we continue to let them sweep through the Middle East, they'll soon knock over Assad, and without even thinking what that means.
Yes, I totally agree with you, and we need more knowledgeable people. For instance, maybe they should put Bernard Lewis, the great historian, as head of all of our policy there.
So you're saying, okay, I got it. And now, Neil, are you telling me that now this was a hacked Twitter account? Okay, we got an update now that was a false report. The IDF Twitter account was hacked by the Syrian Electronic Army. And so they now hacked the IDF. That's a false report. We take it back. See, we take it back. I guess it's going to have to come down off the top of other sites as well. It has been dropped. False report. But at least we report and then tell you it's a false report when it's a false report, unlike Associated Press, which only publishes false reports and never takes them down. Yep. Well, at least there's no nuclear leak there in Dimona. That's good. Thank God for that. Whew, that was close. Well, I guess I can have an extra hot dog now tomorrow. Yeah, another hot dog. Another hot dog. So what would you like to talk about? Immigrants and epidemics and why the government is inflicting them upon us? You want to talk about the stock market smashing records and going above 17,000? It's like worshiping the golden calf while this is going on. I saw that Jamie Dimon got throat cancer. That's awful. I forget which group he's with. How did he get throat cancer? I don't know how that happens. I mean, I'm not saying he should have. I'm just saying you don't say it's God's will. I know a lot of good people who got cancer, and a lot of good people have heart attacks and leukemia. Little babies have their hair. You've seen the pictures of that hospital. My God, you talk about suffering. All right, what should we talk about? I saw a good movie last night. I'll talk about a movie I saw. Watch the movie called The Counselor. The Counselor, Counsalo. Counselor. He's a lawyer who wants to get in the drug business and do one deal to make some quick money, but he gets sucked in, he can't get out. Some of the most violent horror of what the cartel does to people who screw it over I've ever seen in my life. I mean, it was amazing. The actresses in it were pretty good, I got to tell you. I'm not big fans of them, but they were really good. And then there's something new in the. Ridley Scott was the director. Let's start with that. How could it be bad? The man who gave us Gladiator, right? How could Ridley Scott ever do a bad movie? Well, this is a pretty brutal movie. The Counselor. I don't know how it wound up on TV already. A lawyer finds himself in over his head when he gets involved in drug trafficking. Director Ridley Scott, writer Cormac McCarthy. Cormac McCarthy's like 85 years old. I don't know how he writes stuff like this. I'm jealous. Stars are Michael Fassbender, Penelope Cruz, Cameron Diaz. They were good. She plays a ruthless monster. The blonde one. I don't know the difference between Cameron Diaz and Penelope Cruz. I mixed them up. I think the villain is Cameron Diaz. I don't remember. But one of the best roles in this movie, I'm giving you a little entertainment now. One of the best parts in it was I liked his outfits. I wish I could find someone to get me clothing like that. I often wonder where Hollywood gets like the clothing designers. Javier Bardem plays an amazing character. I loved his outfits. I liked his lifestyle. It was so opposite to my lifestyle. Amazing. Javier Bardem. And his pets are two cheetahs. I don't mean two women who cheat on their husbands. Two animals, cheetahs. Two cheetahs. Now, I'm not from Brooklyn. Two cheetahs. His pets are two cheetahs. It shows you what language can do. No, he has beautiful cheetahs in the back of his truck in a cage. Cheetahs. Brad Pitt's in it, which was shocking. He plays a good role, like a dashing drug dealer. But I don't want to give the ending away. It's so horrible. One of the scenes is so horrible. It made my night. It was so good. It was so violent. I felt cleansed at the end of the movie. Like new levels of violence was shown in the movie. I felt better at the end of I was so like depressed and bored before it started, and I understood now why violent movies can be purging. They're like a drug. Nice outfits, sexy women, brutality, cheetahs, fast cars, trucks that blow up. The machine gun on the highway scene was very good. I didn't know it could shoot at that distance. I forget what that should. A MAC-10. It would look like a MAC-10, the official gun of the illegal alien. The official weapon of the illegal alien. Oh my God! Yeah, that was an interesting movie. I love movies. They entertain me at night. I relax watching a movie. Dog sleeps. I watch a movie. He had a rough night, Teddy. We had a bad night together. I got so mad at him. Oh, man. I said I can't take it anymore, giving him away. Would you believe it? A thing I love so much? I got so angry at how much I have to do for this animal. It's like around-the-clock care. He requires more care than two cheetahs from Brooklyn. Two cheetahs from Brooklyn would be less maintenance than this dog. Unbelievable. Then he had the accident. He got doo-doo on himself. That's the part that did it for me. I have a fetish. I can't take it. I'm a germaphobe to begin with. I like about dogs, they do their thing, that's the end of it. You don't have to know about it. Came back from the yard all over his legs, his back. I'm sorry. And my assistant said, I got bad news for you. I said, oh, no. Ugh, disgusting. And I couldn't bring him to the dog. It was after the show in the sink with a mess with rags. So he was like slinking away from me all night because I was saying, God, I was like fuming. How could you do this to yourself? Blah. And, they're sensitive. They know when you don't like them. And I said, okay, I'm sorry hours late. I didn't mean it. It's like a relationship with an animal. Poodles are so amazing. They react to you. It's like, okay, like hiding. He was like depressed. And I try to make it up for him. You want some? No, I don't want it. It's okay. I'm not mad. It's just fine. I'll just lay here. Like he gets listless. He lays on the little bed. I said, I didn't mean it. I was upset for a minute. I had to wash you. I don't like doo-doo. It's okay. I didn't take it personally. We'll do our own thing tonight. We'll see you tomorrow. I mean, he's like just like a person. It's like all night, listless Ted. Finally, I baited him with a little cheese. He became my friend again, and everything ended well. It was a good ending to a bad relationship story. Oh, here's a caller. Renee on WFTL in Fort Lauderdale, the land of the cheetah. Welcome to the Savage Nation, Renee. What's on your mind?
Hey, Michael, I want to make your day. First of all, you need to know that you are loved and chosen by God, and you are a watchman. We need some watchmen during these times. And looking towards the Bible is the only place we should be looking. The acronym for Bible is Basic Instruction Before Leaving Earth. So if you want to look in Ezekiel, you can really see what's going to happen in the Middle East. We're living in the end times, and that's what's going on.
I don't deny it. It certainly looks like it to me, and if you believe we're living in the end times, where does our dear leader fit in? He's the anti-you-know-what?
Well, you know what they say, if he is the Antichrist, he doesn't know it yet because the Antichrist will indwell somebody, so he might be, but, you know, he's supposed to come from the West, and he doesn't fit that profile. We don't know.
Oh, thank you. That was a close one.
Yeah.
Thank God. Supposed to come from the West? What do you mean, the Antichrist supposed to come from the West? What do you mean by the West? Like a cowboy?
Well, no, it just says in the Bible that that's where he's supposed to come from. He's supposed to come from the West, and if he
he is in the West. This is a Western nation.
No, where he was born, though.
Oh, that thing again, the birth certificate thing. We'll have to defer to Donald Trump on that one.
Forget about that. That doesn't matter. You know, one way or another, he got into those schools. So.
That's right. Okay. Doesn't matter about doesn't matter about the madrasas or 20 years listening to Reverend Wright saying "God damn America." That doesn't matter. We've all forgotten that already. He's actually acting out everything Reverend Wright put in his head. It's like amen. Everything Reverend Wright said, he's doing.
Yeah, and you know,
when you think about it, everything Reverend Wright said in that church that Obama attended, he's doing. It's not like he's disconnected from it. Everything the man said, this guy's doing. Thanks for the call. I'm going to be here with you right through the end of the show today. I'm in that kind of mood. I'm a little fogged out. I don't like the fake Twitter feed. I don't watch Twitter. Look at an iPhone. So Michael Fassbender is the counselor, Penelope Cruz, Cameron Diaz, Javier Bardem. You know what's strange about this movie is it didn't make a lot of money because it's too violent in one way, but it isn't. The end of it has such deep philosophy about torture. It's like a Mexican head of the whole cartel lives in a mansion, and he waxes philosophical to the guy whose wife he kidnapped about worlds that you leave in, worlds that you enter. That once you enter a certain world, you can't go back to it. And that once you enter into that new world, you can't go back to the old world. And that what you think when you leave, you think you can leave this world by turning back, but you can never turn back. And then he gets sadistic to him because they kidnapped his wife, and he says to him on the phone, he says, would you trade places on the wheel with that which you love? And the lead actor knows he's talking about his wife, and he starts to cry, and he says, yes, yes. And the drug dealer says, well, you can't. It's too late. I'll be right back.
Join the Savage Nation. Call now, 855-400-SAVAGE, 855-400-7282. Savage.
Thus, it is the Savage Nation, 855-400-7282. Let's take the callers on the program. Where is the one I was looking for? Where is the one? Here's one. Joan on KSFO in San Francisco. Joan, thanks for calling from Nancy Pelosi's backyard.
I don't live in her backyard, though. I go.
No, you see, but her backyard is big enough for at least 10 illegal aliens with a couple of hammocks and a tent. What's on your mind today?
Well, Michael, I have my interpretation of what it means. Don't look back.
Would you hang on so we can do it at the top of the next hour?
Yeah.
To all the rest of my listeners, some of whom leave me at the end of 2 hours. Well, all I can say is it's been quite a run today, hasn't it? I hope you've enjoyed the show. I'll be right back for everyone else, right here on the Savage Nation.
Join the Savage Nation. Call now, 855-400-SAVAGE, 855-400-7282. Savage. Warning. The Savage Nation contains adult language, adult content, psychological nudity. Listener discretion is advised. And now, America's most exciting radio talk show, The Savage Nation, home of borders, language, culture. And here he is, Michael Savage.
It is a fact that America just voted Obama the worst president in, they say 70 years, I would say since George Washington. And now his health plan is going to slam New Yorkers with monster increases, making even the communist wobblers on the Upper West Side just rock and roll with shock. That's one story. What are you going to say about that? Then I was talking about, other things. I can't summarize. I forgot already the whole show till now. But here we are in hour number 3, and all the news is here, too. What's the news? Is there any news? Well, yeah, let's start with the fact that the country is being overrun by infected illegal aliens, drug dealers, people from the Middle East, young Chinese girls who are being brought in as slave labor. And we're being told that it's a humanitarian crisis when it's a manufactured crisis. But even the Republicans are in on it. The Republican godfathers are in this with Obama. Why do you think that the Republican godfathers are silent while Obama floods America with diseased illegal aliens? Because the godfathers in the Republican Party want amnesty, but they don't know how to say it without losing your vote. It's that simple. They're like bad shock jocks. John Boehner is like a bad shock jock. I mean, he wants this very badly, but he doesn't have the nerve to say it. So he's an enabler. He's working with Obama. That's why they're not saying anything. That's the whole story. If you care to comment on any of these topics, you're in bad shape. Let's take some of the callers. Albany, Georgia. Stan, welcome to the program. Go ahead, please.
Yes, Dr. Savage. I've been listening to you now, my gosh, for over 10 years. I'm a federal police officer with 29 years experience. Also
Well, thank you. It's an honor. It's an honor for a man of your caliber to be a listener, believe me. Tim, it's an honor to me.
Thank you, sir. You're the one I will listen to. Earlier, you made a statement, and I've listened to you over the years make so many true statements, but a while ago you nailed it. When you said Israel, everything hinges off Israel, the future of our country, actually the world, you nailed it. Israel is God's peace, whether we like to hear that or not, it is true. And I know you're a busy man, Doctor, but if you get a chance, please look at Ezekiel 38. And on the air, I'd like to hear your opinion, what you think it means. And
well, I mean, I'll be on the record with it. I said Israel's the center of Western civilization. And what happens in Israel determines whether or not Western civilization will continue. It's that simple. Sure. Now, you're referring to Ezekiel, one of my favorite prophets. I like Isaiah. I like Jeremiah. But if you'll bear with me, and I know most people don't want to hear this before July 4th weekend, I'll look for it, though. I can't find it. My Bible has too many... I just can't find it. I'm sorry, I'm embarrassed. I have so many Post-its in it, I can't find the pages in this Bible. This would be a nice auction item, Savage's Bible with all of the Post-its. I don't know where it is. It's Ezekiel, huh? Okay, he's earlier on. He's before Jeremiah. Exodus, Ezekiel. Is he before Joshua or after?
I believe it's after.
I'm not allowed to read Leviticus because that goes against the creed in San Francisco. If I read Leviticus, I get arrested for reading Leviticus in San Francisco. You have to tear those pages out of the Bible. 1 Samuel, 2 Samuel, 2. I can't find it. Why don't you read it to us? I can't put my hand on it. It's bad radio for me to be flipping pages here. But I have a feeling my audience will indulge me. And here it is. Ezekiel, which now, Stan?
Chapter 38. Chapter 38. It speaks.
Okay, we're going to do Bible talk on the Savage Nation. This is your opportunity to mock us and turn the show off and listen to people who are mocking everything on television. So, Ezekiel 37, the land of fat, the hand of fat. Oh, okay, 37 is a good one. I have that underlined. They shall not defile themselves anymore with their idols, nor with their detestable things, nor with any of their transgressions, but I will save them out of their dwelling places. Okay, 38, right? Oh, that's the Gog-Magog thing.
Gog and Magog.
Yes, Gog-Magog. Persia, Cush, Gomer, Togarmah. I know this one very well because I had the great born-again, you know who I'm talking about, Reverend Falwell on this show many years ago, 10 years ago.
Yes, sir.
Did you ever hear that interview?
Yes, sir, I did, with Jerry. Yeah.
That's right. Jerry Falwell was on the show, and we respectfully disagreed on who can go to heaven. I remember that. But he actually quoted this Gog-Magog and explained it and said that this is depictive of what will happen in Israel.
Yep.
When Gog shall come against the land of Israel, saith the Lord, my fury shall arise up in my nostrils. And it goes on, and it says, steep places shall fall. Every wall shall fall to the ground. And I will call for a sword against him throughout all my mountains. And what he predicted is that there'll be fire throughout the Middle East, and Israel will destroy all of their enemies. That's basically it in a nutshell, isn't that it?
Yes, sir, you nailed it. That's it.
You know, Israel reminds me of Samson right now, being goaded by the dwarfs with the pitchforks. Israel's like the biblical Samson. Every day the dwarfs with the pitchforks goad Samson, poking him, mocking him, defiling him, taunting him, and Samson does nothing. And then one day Samson brings down the temple upon all of them. I think that's what we're talking about, isn't it?
Yes, sir. He takes all he can take, and then that's it.
But that was my interpretation. It was of the image of Samson and the dwarfs that was sent to mock him. I remember seeing that as a child in a movie theater. I was amazed by it. Remember they blinded Samson before that? I remember how that broke. It just hurt me when I watched that movie version. I don't know who did that, MGM's, Samuel Zanuck, whoever did it. He was played by Victor Mature, who was the worst Samson in history. He didn't really have a good body. But nevertheless, so Samson is blinded by the Philistines, who are today the Palestinians, I believe. I'm not certain if that's true, but more or less, the Philistines blinded Samson and chained him and brought him in for torment. And they were tormenting him in the arena with midgets and with dwarfs who came over with hot things and, poking him and taunting him. And I'm sitting there in the theater squirming. I couldn't take it. And all of a sudden, Samson takes his arms and pushes them against the pillars of the temple, where all of the pagans are laughing at him. And they laugh him and mock at him. They say, look at the Jew. Look at him trying to push the pillars of the temple. Who does the Jew think he is? As they eat the grapes and drink the wine. And then slowly you hear the rumbling. It was very well done. I think the movie was Samson and Delilah. It was so shocking when I was a child. Slowly the pillars crack. Slowly the temple starts to collapse. And all of a sudden the temple falls down upon all the Philistines. That was some drama, for a young kid?
It was.
But the metaphor is quite clear. Israel is today Samson. Israel's being taunted by the Philistines all over again. And finally Israel will snap and bring the temple down upon all of them, is what you're saying, I believe, right?
Yes, sir, that is exactly what I'm saying. And also I'd like to say, Dr. Savage, when you're motivated, your audience is motivated. When you're fired up, we out here in the listening world, we're fired up also. Keep doing what you're doing. God bless you. We need you more than ever now.
Thank you so much. Well, that's encouraging. I got to tell you, it was not a great day for me so far. I mean, he said when I'm motivated, I've been kind of the opposite of motivated, but I guess the opposite of motivated is motivating for me because it makes me seek the water from a deeper source. Let's put it to you that way. You know, when you're kind of down there, you start digging into the earth and you go deeper and deeper and deeper. But if you're interested in this, go to Isaiah 17 about the burden of Damascus. Read Jeremiah on Damascus. Read Jeremiah where he says people will be fleeing Damascus. Read Isaiah 19 on Egypt. And you can laugh at it all you want, but there's an awful lot of people who believe this. And I would say be a doubter at your own risk. Because you certainly can't believe the newspapers. You certainly can't believe the television news. So who do you trust for what the truth is? Your politicians or no? I don't know. I don't know if the Bible told us that America would be overrun by ill immigrants on purpose. I don't think that's in the Bible. I don't know of a sane nation on earth that would do this to itself. I never heard of it, actually. Have you ever heard of a nation that would permit illegal aliens who are infected in many cases to come into a country? Would you ever believe there'd be a nation that would knowingly do this to itself unless it was an insane nation? Joan on KSFO, San Francisco. Go ahead, please.
Oh, hi, Michael. I've listened to you for many, many years. First time I have ever called in.
Now, you say that you know what it means to not look back. I was saying don't look back earlier.
Yeah.
So succinctly summarize in your mind what don't look back means, Joan, would you please?
In my mind, it doesn't mean don't look back just once. I think it means don't live in the past. If we spend too much time thinking about our past, and reliving things that we did and experiences we had in the past. So it prevents us from living in the present.
It's very simple what you just said, and very true.
And if we don't live in the present, I don't believe we can't move forward. And we should.
Yes, but I was speaking about that with reference to reading my old writings and my old journals from going back to 1963, which is a very long time. I'm having them all transcribed. It's not that I'm living in the past, nor am I dwelling on the past, but my feeling is this. Unless we know where we came from, how can we know where we're going? And I think that we need to know what our past was in order to know where we are today and where we might be going tomorrow. I don't think we should ignore our past. It's like American history itself. Can America ignore its own past to not know what's being taken from us by Barack Hussein Obama? We have to know what our past was to know what's being stolen from us by him and his minions, and to see where he's taking us. And in the same regard, I think each person needs to look back on their own life from time to time and reflect upon their own past to see where they are today. And I'm telling you that by doing that, as depressing as it can be, and it can be, or let's say agitating, I had to go out to a point on the water today, and I had to pray to God and say, thank you for all you have given me and my family. That was my prayer, because I look back and I say, God gave me everything I've asked for, and thank God my family is okay. I mean, what else can I say to God? That's all I could do. I mean, what more do I need in a prayer? That's all. I look at all of the yearnings of a young man, the young me, and I'm saying, thank you very much for giving me all I prayed for. What more can I say to God? I'll be right back.
Join the Savage Nation. Call now, 855-400-SAVAGE, 855-400-7282. Savage.
The Savage Nation is sponsored by SwissAmerica.com, the only company I, Michael Savage, trust to buy my gold and silver from. SwissAmerica.com.
I've sent a clear message to parents in these countries not to put their kids through this. I recently sent Vice President Biden to meet with Central American leaders and find ways to address the root causes of this crisis. Secretary Kerry will also be meeting with those leaders again tomorrow. With our international partners, we're taking new steps to go after the dangerous smugglers who are putting thousands of children's lives at risk.
Well, if we were to believe the president, he would give them a sandwich, a new set of clothing, and a few inoculations, even a $100 bill, and send them back to Guatemala and El Salvador. Now, I know many of you are afraid to acknowledge what I just said as the reality because you're afraid of being called a bigot. But I don't think it takes a bigot to love their country. I don't think it takes a bigot to say charity begins at home. I don't think it takes a bigot for America to stand up for its integrity through its borders, language, and culture. In fact, I would argue the opposite, and I would say that the president knows damn well that he created the crisis. He knows that no one believes him. He knows that every poll shows everyone looks right through him. They see that he's a charlatan, and they understand he created this crisis himself through very careful plans, because we've shown you the emails that were released last week. Didn't make it to your local rag, I know that, which showed that HHS, Health and Human Services, was putting out an RFP in January for clothing and food for, I think it was at least 100,000 children that they knew were coming. This has been carefully orchestrated by the White House. It's an impeachable offense. Demand the emails, hold hearings, demand the emails, and put those in prison who planned this assault on our borders. It's that simple. Now, if we had an opposition party and a fair press, there'd be immediate hearings. The summer recess would be off. This would be an around-the-clock hearing. The emails would be nailed right now from HHS, DHS, executive, whatever. And you'd get the emails and find out who orchestrated this assault on our national sovereignty. And they would go to prison for it. It drives me, it really does. I mean, look, I'm sitting here in my radio studio, and I'm right now compiling. Let me tell you another story. We're approaching the summer, so I can slow down the pace a little bit. I can't sit and worry every second whether someone's going to switch a dial and listen to a ball game or listen to me. So just listen to me. I'm sitting here in my radio studio in the San Francisco area, and for the last couple of months, I've been compiling all of my archives going back to 1960s, early 60s. I have all my journals. I have all my radio tapes from 1994 on, would you believe it? Some on audio cassette, and I've had someone compiling the archives for years. Different people. They're all compiled, over 100 pages of written notes of the best parts of my radio shows. Then I have movies, the standard Super 8, 8mm movies going back to when I was a kid. all the way through the collecting years in Fiji, the Fiji Islands, Tonga, Samoa, Marquesas, collecting plants with the family when the kids were young, me in the jungles, this and that, and miscellaneous and sundry things associated with the writing and the written career. So I told you last week that I was looking for a university home for my archives, and I told you that I found one, which I have, and I can't mention what it is yet because I haven't, let us say, gone to that level, but I have a written note that it's going to be at a home, and it's not going to be in California. They're not getting it. Berkeley couldn't get it if they paid me $50 million. They can't have it. Let them collect the LGBT archives from Polk Street and the Castro District, all they want. God bless them if that's what they want to become exclusively. Good luck to them. They'll be known for that. No, my archives will be going to a state that respects my position and respects what I've created, and I've worked that out. But the point I'm making is I'm looking back on all of my productivity, and I'm saying to myself, how the heck did I do all of this given my shaky start in life, given my shaky beginnings as a youngster, my shaky beginnings as a writer? How did it end up with such a vast assemblage of written and spoken word? So the answer is, my friends, written in the wind. I don't know. How's that? I do know this. All I know is that you can channel yourself in any direction you want. As Henry Miller wrote, I think in Black Spring, as I awaken each morning, my life goes out before me in my feet go in 1,000 different directions. Well written. Paraphrase, not as good as his writing, but that's right. You can wake up in the morning and your feet can take you in 1,000 different directions.
Join the Savage Nation. Call now, 855-400-SAVAGE, 855-400-7282. Savage.
Those of you who are offended by my words, let me quote Winston Churchill, one of the greatest men of our time, where he wrote, shortly after World War II, when he saw what was coming, as he was trying to battle the forces of totalitarianism, and as we do so under the totalitarian presidency of Barack Obama. Today, Churchill's words are important when he said, no socialist system can be established without a political police. Many of those who are advocating socialism or voting socialist today will be horrified at this idea. That is because they are short-sighted. That is because they do not see where their theories are leading them. Churchill concluded by saying, no socialist government conducting the entire life and industry of the country could afford to allow free, sharp, or violently worded expressions of public discontent. They would have to fall back on some form of Gestapo. Now, that describes exactly what's happening under our socialist president today. I wrote that in Trickle Up Poverty, which was published, and by the way, was a bestseller, whether you know it or not and whether you like it or not. I could care less whether you like it or not. It was published in 2010, and it was a bestseller, whether you read it or not or whether you like it or not. I'm a best-selling author. There are a lot of people who agree with me. Whether you, the brainwashed masses, do not is somewhat irrelevant to me, because more than 60 years after Churchill spoke these words, they describe exactly what is happening today under our socialist regime today. And I should point out that Churchill's opponent in that election, Clement Attlee, was the leader of the Socialist Labor Party. And among the issues that Attlee was promoting, you ready for this, were a national health care system and a birth-to-death welfare state, which is exactly Barack Obama's agenda. Does it start to ring a bell to you? I'm just sharing with you my views of America, myself, where I'm at, where the country's at, and how he gets away with it. I do know that this group ISIS in the Middle East is killing fellow Muslims by the hundreds, if not by the thousands. They're cutting off their heads. They're humiliating them, burning villages to the ground. Fellow Muslims are being killed by these psychopathic Islamo-Nazis. You have to ask yourself, why is Obama not unleashing drones on them? Why is he not firing Tomahawk missiles at them? They're running around with brand-new Toyota trucks. Captured American tanks and Humvees. Why is he not blowing them up? You don't understand what's going on here. These are the people that Obama wants to overthrow Assad with. They're McCain's army. You've heard of McHale's Navy, a popular TV show of many years ago. ISIS is McCain's army. They were given the weapons, and they're going to use the weapons to throw over Assad. Do you have any idea what's waiting for the world when Assad is gone and they take over his air force? Is there anyone listening to the show who understands what I'm saying to you, that this is all calculated from within? This is not happening by accident. We still have the most powerful military on earth, and we're not using it. Why not? We're not using it on the border to stop the immigrants coming in with epidemics, are we? We're not using the military to stop ISIS from using their powers of murder and fascism, are we? So, therefore, the government is enabling ISIS, if not outright behind ISIS. You have to ask yourself, wait a minute, what can I do about it? I don't know what you can do about it. All I can do is talk about it. And all I can do is ask myself, why has God forsaken America? So as I said to you, I'm just bewildered by how he gets away with it, Obama. I'm bewildered by how the military stands down while the world is burning. I'm bewildered by how the media has disappeared in your lifetime. I'm bewildered by the influx of diseased immigrants on purpose by Holder, by Obama, by Valerie Jarrett, by the invisible hands behind Obama like La Raza. I'm bewildered by it all. I'm bewildered by what's going on in front of my eyes, how the communist revolution that I was warned about has actually taken place right in front of my eyes, and there's been no opposition except on a few radio shows, a few blogs who see it. The intelligentsia who study these things see what's going on. And I'm using a loaded word again, the word intelligentsia, because I told you it was used specifically, well, not invented there, it was used specifically during the Russian period, the early Russian period, revolutionary times, but it applies in America today. I made a call after coming back from the bike ride to an old friend who's in the media. Let's just say he's an extremely prominent conservative. Let's leave it at that. And we were talking about publishing my journals and various unpublished works that I have. And after about 30 minutes, it came back to us and where we've been in our life's work. And I was trying to tell him how hard it is to look at my work from 1963 onward. And I jokingly said, I haven't yet turned to salt. You know, don't look back, you'll turn to a pillar of salt. I said, I haven't yet turned to salt, but I'm real close. I need some pepper. I surely need some pepper right now to prevent becoming salt, because looking back while you're living on your early self with pictures of yourself and your writings is frightening. I don't know if I'm going to continue to do this. So he talked to me about who he was in the 60s. And he told me that he was a radical leftist in the 60s. He told me that he was deeply enmeshed in the entire counterculture movement. I had no idea that that's what he was. And I said, wait a minute. Don't you realize, I said to Comrade X, this dire conservative today who fights the communists every day, I said, don't you realize that our politics have not really changed? I said, don't you realize that we still are idealistic liberals? And he laughed. I said, my politics haven't changed. I was always against authoritarianism. I haven't changed my politics in 50 years. I oppose authoritarianism. And that's what I'm fighting today. It's the same as the 60s. People say, how did you go from being a liberal to a conservative? The answer is, I didn't change at all. You did. I said to him, don't you understand what happened here? I said, we're still fighting this authoritarianism that we fought in the 1960s. So then it was LBJ and the war. Now it's Obama and the war. But it's worse than LBJ and the war. It's Obama and the Nazi spying, number one. It's Obama and his Nazi regime, decimating his enemies with tactics not used since Joseph Stalin and getting away with it for a number of reasons. And so I said, that's why we resist him. We resist him and we oppose him for those reasons. I said, our politics haven't changed. I said, the definition of our politics has been changed for us. The communists are so clever that they've changed the definition of what a liberal is. By definition, I'm a classical liberal, and I'm proud of it. Now, you can jump all over that and say, oh, Savage admitted he's a liberal. What does that actually mean? What it means is I'm the liberal that liberals pretend to be and aren't. You're telling them that Bill Maher and those frauds on television are liberals? They're Nazi, they're fascist spokesmen supporting a fascist regime. How else would you define someone who makes a joke about spying on the average American? That's a liberal for you. You see, this explains why many liberals love my show. They don't quite understand how they can love me, even though I'm defined as a conservative. But I'm not really a right-winger. No. I'm not a left-winger. I'm not a right-winger. I'm an anti-authoritarian. I'm an anti-authoritarian. I despise people controlling me. I don't like a government controlling me. Do you understand that? Now you have the most controlling government in American history. Not since King George have Americans been as decimated by centralized authority as we are under this fraudster, trickster, KGB frontman, Barack Hussein Obama. Which brings us to the next point. Back when I was doing this show in the 1990s, there would be a caller who would say, Michael, I spoke to an ex-KGB agent who said that the Soviets never lost the Cold War. They actually won it. They just went underground. And they're going to wind up putting a person in office in America after taking over all the cultural apparatus, and they're going to win at the end. I said, don't be crazy. I said, wait a minute. Hold it. Stop for a minute. Whoa. Is that what happened here? Are you telling me there's been a worldwide communist victory and I don't know it? We're talking about what needs to be done with the rogue presidency, not the imperial presidency. They all have it wrong. That was originally applied to, I believe, who was it, Nixon? No. Yeah, Nixon was called the imperial president. And I have applied the term the rogue presidency to Obama because we have a rogue president who does what he wants, saying, I'll go and sue me. I'll sign it with a pen. Right now he's dumping illegal aliens across America and laughing at America while doing it. I mean, it's an impeachable offense. It's an impeachable offense what he and Pelosi and the others are doing. So you say, well, where are the Republicans? They're in bed with them. But they're not the only ones in bed with them. I don't know if you watch Fox News as often as I do. When have you last seen Fox News take on the issue of illegal aliens? The answer is never, because Murdoch is on the side of amnesty for illegal aliens. And when Murdoch wants something, his stooges do what he wants them to do. Do you want me to cozy up to everyone on Fox News in order to get on the network so you can see my face? I really don't care whether they have me on. It doesn't matter to me. I'm telling you what I know to be a truth. Murdoch is in the amnesty camp. Murdoch owns News Corporation. So when Sheriff Arpaio, the greatest sheriff in America, got up and said that it's an attempt by the Obama administration to dump the illegals on us, calculated by the administration, did you hear the newscaster mock him? The newscaster was doing what Murdoch and Ailes wanted him to do, which is to make a mockery of anyone who stands up to this illegal alien invasion. And so you're not going to hear about this much on the major media. The fix is in. And it's going to take the people themselves rioting to stop this. Now, I'm not behind the rioting. I don't know those people in California who just stood up and turned the buses around. I don't know them. God bless them, though. They're the real American Tea Party. They are the ones who really did throw the bales of tea into Boston Harbor. It's the equivalent of the American Revolution starting all over again. And here's the thing you don't understand. The four horsewomen of the apocalypse and Mr. Axelrod want you to revolt. There's a high probability that they want rebellion in America so that they can declare martial law and seize your guns. I know he says, now you're really, right-wing maniac, nut, it's conspiracy theory. I know it sounds like that to the average dumb moron walking around in Manhattan looking at Madison Square Garden's signs. I get it. The average brainwashed dummy walking around in America could not even understand where I'm coming from. It's impossible for them. The average brainwashed American, let's say he's 25 years old, and he's been in the American school system since he's 5. So he had 20 years of brainwashing. He could never understand that his own government would do this to him. He wouldn't accept it. Well, let me put it to you this way. I study this for a living. You don't. And I know more about it than you do. You can't know what's going on if you only read a newspaper occasionally or listen to headline news. You can't know what's going on. But if you study these things as I do 7 days a week for 16 hours a day, it becomes crystal clear what is going on in this nation and who's doing it to us and why they're doing it. Are you telling me that the liberal is so devious that they're planning ahead for their cheap labor? Are they that devious that they're planning ahead 10, 12 years, 15 years because they want another generation of indentured servitude? And Obama has, you notice, gotten very defensive about using the word middle class lately in all of his speeches because he knows that we're on to him. I know for a fact that the communists have always attacked the bourgeoisie. As I've said on the show over and over again, the bourgeoisie is the middle class. In the ex-Soviet Union, there was no middle class. It was only the government and then the peons, the peasants fighting over a salami in a butcher shop. And that's Obama's upbringing. He cannot help it. The man cannot help it. He despises the bourgeoisie. And that's why he associates only with the very rich. That's why he only associates with the millionaires and the billionaires that he castigates on a daily basis. I'll be right back.
Join the Savage Nation. Call now, 855-400-SAVAGE, 855-400-7282. Savage.
As we come to the end of hour number 3 for Thursday, July 3rd, 2014, here's the sound you missed today because you were rude and didn't listen to the last 2 hours and 45 minutes of the Savage Nation. You were punished by not hearing Obama blaming the Republicans for the influx of the illegal aliens swarming across the border. This is what you have come to in the United States of America. The most unpopular president since World War, they say World War II, I think they mean the Revolutionary War. The most unpopular president since the Revolutionary War continues to blame the other party for what he manipulated. It's unbelievable to me. Then we have the racist organization La Raza, which, by the way, means the race. How could you not be a racist and belong to a group called The Race? So the head of La Raza says the anti-illegal immigrant protesters are appalling and outrageous. I would say La Raza is a seditious organization that should be investigated by the FBI. But since the FBI works for La Raza, I'm sure that they will not listen to my advice. Then the strange weirdo, Representative Gutierrez, says the GOP can kiss states goodbye if they don't deal with illegal aliens who are Hispanic. How racist can it get? Another good soundbite that you missed is the head of the Republican National Committee, who I'm not a huge fan of, saying that Obama wants to be president, House Speaker, Senate leader, and on the court. He's absolutely right. That's called dictatorship. That's what we have in the White House. Representative King says that the monster terrorist headquarters in the Middle East, known as ISIS, intends to attack the United States probably sooner rather than later. What is he telling that to me for? Why don't they just detain anyone who looks like they're a member of ISIS at the airport instead of scaring Irish grandmothers in wheelchairs? Old Representative Bolton, still looking for a job, says Netanyahu should treat murdered teens as an act of war and destroy Hamas. Another neocon looking for war in the Middle East. Good going, Bolton. I'm glad you're out of work. Here's a great soundbite. One of the greatest astronauts in history from the Apollo program, an actual astronaut who's been there and done that, says that climate alarmism is the biggest fraud in the field of science. And he talks about carbon dioxide and what a nonsense story that is. And he's an astronaut, not the president of the United States with his stooge fake scientists. Amazing to me. That's from an astronaut, not from a professor making money on the fraud of global warming. If we go to michaelsavage.com, you will see an audio of Immigrants and Epidemics from Michael Savage, where I tried to warn America 30 years ago what the liberal media is hiding from you, Obama is now doing to you. A nurse was arrested at the Denver airport preparing to join the headquarters in the Middle East. She was seduced by an ISIS militant on Skype. If you take a look at her face, you'll see what the burqa was invented for. Meanwhile, Obama has granted the wind industry a permit to kill eagles. Isn't that nice? Where are the environmentalists that don't exist? Meanwhile, Bergdahl, remember the POW Bergdahl was traded for 5 murderous terrorists? They've let him wander off his Texas base as part of his reintegration. What does that mean? What is he contacting who? What do you mean he's wandering off the base? Before you leave me today, I want you to go to my website, michaelsavage.com, and sign up for the Savage Nation's free daily newsletter. You get it in your inbox a few times a week from yours truly, and it's absolutely free right on michaelsavage.com. That's it. God save America.